This is how you prototype your board game without wasting money. Every board game starts with an idea. Maybe it's a cool mechanic you can't stop thinking about, or a theme that just sticks with you, or just the image of your friends all gathered around the table playing it. But before your game ever hits Kickstarter or the shelves, it needs to become something real. Something you can actually play. This something is your prototype. And honestly, your prototype is way more important than first-time creators often realize. To help break down this stage, I spoke with Joe Slack, and he's a board game designer himself who's helped thousands of indie creators bring their games to life. Joe's seen prototypes done right, and he's seen where people tend to get stuck. Together, we put together a guide to help you understand things like how to put together your first prototype using things you already have, when and why you should upgrade to a more polished version, what kind of cost you can expect, and when it makes sense to spend, how to use your prototype to both playtest your game and help with marketing. Plus, I'm going to walk you through a real-life example of Victor Shu, our director of games here at Launchboom, who's bringing his own game, Hover, to life. Hover is a brutal battle of hummingbirds, and Victor is right in the middle of this prototype process. His story really shows how everything I'm going to go through works in practice, and I've even had a chance to be in on the playtesting personally. And before we jump in, if you want even more detailed guidance on your crowdfunding journey, if you stick around to the end, I'll link you to a free audio copy of our book Crowdfunded that details everything you need to know from idea to launch on how to make sure you have that successful day one. So whether you're just in the idea stage or seriously gearing up for your next crowdfunding campaign, this prototype guide will help you launch smarter, not just prettier. So let's dive in. So where do you start? Build it yourself. The best place to start is almost always at home. Literally, at home. Your early prototype should be as quick, cheap, and flexible as possible. At this point, the goal isn't to impress anyone, it's to learn. Learn what people like about your game, what functions well, what parts need to be updated, and how the overall gameplay flows. When I talked to Joe, he said for an early prototype, I suggest doing it as basic as possible, even $0, just making it look good enough. Think things like index cards, printer paper, paper clips, or tokens that you stole out of other game boxes. Or if you're really starting from scratch, it should all be things you can buy for around $20 at an office supply store. You don't need anything fancy, just functional. Victor's first prototype for Hover started exactly like this. He used index cards and other things he had laying around to mock up his vision so that people could play it and he could really test those mechanics before he invested a lot in the game. This version let him play test early, experiment with mechanics, and tweak rules without worrying about sunk costs. There are some big advantages to this DIY prototype. You can make fast edits between playtests. You can jot notes directly on the components. And you can try out wild ideas without worrying about wasting money. This version of the prototype is your sandbox. It's where your game's core experience takes shape. At this point, functionality far outweighs finish. Your estimated cost for this phase should be somewhere around $0 to $20. And remember, we're using index cards, construction paper, bits from other games. But when is it time to work with a manufacturer, and how much is that going to cost? As your game develops, so does the job of your prototype. Once you're past those early playtest stages, you'll want something more refined. Not just to play, but to show future backers what you have to offer. When you've reached the point where you need to pitch your game visually to playtesters or future backers, that presentation starts to matter a little bit more. Here's what Joe had to say. The better you make it look, the more attractive it's going to be to bring people in, get them interested, and give them a feel for what the final game will look like. But do not rush into this stage if your mechanics are still shifting. Spending $150 on a polished unit could slow you down more than it could help you. Make sure your functionality is finalized before you move on to something more expensive. This more expensive version is not just going to be a playtesting prototype, it's your marketing prototype. And you can use it for things like content creation, photography, social media, advertisements. You can do video walkthroughs or trailers. You can do outreach to reviewers and influencers. And you can even use it on your crowdfunding page for visuals. Victor's current phase for Hover is in between these two stages right now. He's done so much playtesting with his DIY version, and now he's starting to have conversations with manufacturers about what that polished marketing prototype is going to look like for him. This production quality prototype is going to be used for things like photos on his campaign page, advertisements, reaching out to reviewers, and more stuff like that. It's going to be a part of the campaign that reflects the final vision of the game. But what does it cost? Okay, you get the difference of what they're going to be used for. The first one was $20. What is this nicer one going to cost? It really depends on your type of prototype. You can get a card game at basic print for $12 to $18 a unit. A standard board game with box, meeples, die is going to be more like $30 to $60 a unit. And when you get custom miniatures, that's when it starts to get expensive. A game with those can run $100 or more. And remember, these prices are not for mass production. They're for short-run, one-off sample prototypes you would use to showcase your game. So your marketing prototype is going to cost anywhere from $12 to $200 depending on the complexity of your components. And where do you get these fully manufactured prototypes? There's tons of trusted game manufacturers out there. like Panda, Longpack, and What's. They work with campaigns that have a variety of goal and budgets. They're also experts in helping figure out what components are necessary and how to cut costs or make sure that things are super high quality in your final product. And the cost will vary depending on your game. So most of them have a place on their website where you can reach out directly and speak to somebody about a quote to see how much your prototype would cost. So what do you do with your prototype at any stage to make sure you're getting the most out of it? Regardless of if you're working with index cards or a manufacturer's sample, your prototype is your most powerful product development tool. And here's how you use that strategically. First, play test the heck out of it. The core job of a prototype is to test gameplay over and over again. Take it to game nights, conventions, online groups, or even play solo sessions. You'll get fresh perspective and uncover things you never noticed before. Ask for feedback and observe testers as they play. Victor playtested Hover repeatedly with his DIY prototype to balance rules and improve player experience. Each session brought new insights that shaped the game's development. And in addition to playtesting, use it for visual content. Even the beginning stages of your game are important to showcase the development, storytelling, and how it grew along the way. And even a mid-tier prototype might be photogenic enough to showcase your game. And when you get to your manufacturer sample, you can use that for higher quality images on your campaign page, social media, and to send out to reviewers. Victor is already planning photo shoots and video demos with his manufacturer prototype to build buzz ahead of his Kickstarter launch. And lastly, take detailed notes. Whether it's through playtesting or showcasing your visuals on social media, take note of what builds buzz and excitement, what excites players, and what folks aren't responding to. Use that data not just to improve your game mechanics, but to improve how you're telling the story of your game through your copy, both on your social media and your Kickstarter page. So here are my final thoughts on prototyping. The question isn't just how much should I spend on a prototype, it's what do I need my prototype to do for me right now? If you're in early testing, stay scrappy, stay flexible, and stay cheap. If you're ready to market, invest in something that helps you look the part. Prototypes aren't just stepping stones, they're storytelling tools. Use them well, and it'll help not just shape how your game is played, but how it's received. If you found this overview helpful and want to take your board game launch even further, don't forget to grab your free audiobook download of Crowdfunded. It's packed with step-by-step guidance on running a successful Kickstarter campaign from start to finish. Just check the link in the description and grab your copy today. And happy prototyping! I can't wait to see the transitions between your DIY versions versus your final production run.